All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny, actually a bit cloudy San Diego, but how and ever. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Olivia Chadwick, who is in the Saskatchewan area in Canada, and Garnet Morris, who is in Vancouver in Canada. How are you doing, folks?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, good. Thanks, John.
Excellent. And you are the authors of the book 17 Runs, a book about a self-development story like no other. So let's get straight into it. You guys came together to train for something. Yeah, you as the trainer, Olivia, you as the trainee, Garnet, and it was for for doing a run. And so it started off as a pretty innocuous arrangement, right?
I would say that, although, I was doing all the heavy lifting and Olivia was just doing the telling.
Right. Olivia, when you first started working with Garnet, I mean, this was, as I said, this was a pretty straightforward engagement. Getting somebody ready. What started to change things? When did the dynamic start to shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone understands the relationship between the coach and the athlete, or the coach and the client. That's where it began. However, due to the nature of, I think, just who Garnet and I are, human beings, our roles reversed, where Garnet quite quickly became my mentor, and myself his mentee. But not only that, we became friends. That was a pretty important part of the relationship as well. I guess maybe friends even before mentor and mentee. And now we consider each other family. So it's an evolution of our relationship over decades.
Yeah, I mean it's super interesting. So Garnet, what was your? I mean, why did you embark on this journey in the first place? Why did you even want to? Why did you even want to have a coach, and why did you even want to do this run?
Well, I went through a big transformation at age 40. And part of that was when I actually discovered that to make progress in anything, you need coaches. So I went from being someone who was completely more or less self-taught to someone that started accumulating coaches in every aspect of my life. And so I always had personal trainers, but nothing quite like Olivia. So.
Yeah, and so which is I'm a big believer in coaching and coaches as well. So that's always good to know. So so what happened? What did you what did you discover about some of your limiting beliefs, or the brick walls that you had to go through, Garnet? What did you learn about those? And Olivia, what was that process like of initially like coming up against the blockages for the training, and then flipping it to where it actually started to become about also helping you with your limiting beliefs?
I think from my perspective, when you just look at having never exercised your whole life, being 320 pounds, to start even to exercise is moving that brick. And then to even contemplate running a long distance, when, I used to just drive to do that, all of those things were really, really challenging to get around. And so I think that, just knowing that she was sure that I could, was kind of all it took to really get going.
And by the way, just before Olivia, just before you chime in, Garnet, what made you go from not exercising to setting yourself such an audacious goal? Because some people would say like, well, you probably want to do baby steps, but you decided to set yourself a big goal.
Well, I think, one of the things I joined a program called Strategic Coach, and one of the first things you have to do is make a list of all of the things in your life that are keeping you from being successful. And when you're heavy and you're, blah, 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 it starts to wear on you. You know that that's an impediment. You're not healthy. You're not this. So I made a decision that I would start to make a transformation. So not only did I lose weight, I quit smoking. I started getting counseling and started working away at kind of a whole raft of things that I felt were in my way.
And then
it was a decision. Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just a decision that I made, at the time.
Mhm. So, Olivia, as you started working with Garnet and training, and when did it start to transition, or when did you start to see that that Garnet had wisdom and that could help you in your journey?
The majority of our training that we did together was running, and so there's
Mhm.
always a lot of space within the context of that style of training for us to have lots of conversations and talk about what's going on in our lives as we're logging those miles. And even though I was there to show up as the professional, and help encourage and support Garnet, his natural nature as a generous person, but also has a strong trait of empathy, was to wonder how I might be showing up, emotionally and psychologically. And so, as much as I was there to learn about Garnet, Garnet was that sort of client that also just wanted to know about what was going on in my life. Um, and so a lot of our training was just learning about one another. And in doing so, we had a lot of deep conversations about who we were as people, but also where we've been in life. At the time that we met, I was going through quite a lot of personal problems. I was really frustrated where I was at with my business and my son's health and my marriage. So even though I was able to show up for Garnet in the area that he needed, Garnet so often showed up for a myriad of other areas that I really needed help with. And that was truly special. I had, dozens of clients and nobody showed up for me in that way.
Hmm. So tell me a little, explain to me a little bit about the concept of bricks and dominoes.
The bricks are really this idea to create an image of your mind. And this is a Garnetism, and there's many Garnetisms in the book that are that create these sort of intangible ideas, like a limiting belief, which is a brick,
Hmm.
which is this idea that we have bricks placed upon our heads, like these factors, these barriers that prevent us moving forward in life. And they often are not part of who we are as people. They're ideas or beliefs that were placed upon us due to our social circumstances or our upbringing. Um, and they are preventing us from moving forward in some way because we believe that they're real.
Hmm.
And so the concept is when you start to learn about yourself and understand that these beliefs are not inherently who you are, but they were placed upon you, that you can start to slowly move them out of the way, or hopefully at some point blast through them and move forward and grow.
Yeah, and then which is really interesting because I think limiting beliefs are something that you can have inherited from childhood. You can have adopted yourself. You can have placed on yourself by what you think is expected of you, and sometimes they're pretty hard to identify. So as that process, as you were working together, did you start to discover that there were more of these bricks than you had realized, and in fact, and they had held you back, and the fact that when you confront them, they're not as daunting as maybe they appear.
Oh no, they're definitely pretty daunting.
Yeah.
But I think that, like I said, I had many, many problems. And I think that the conversations that I had with Garnet were the realization that I had created all of them.
Mhm.
They were
Right.
decisions that I had made, and they were all a product of my beliefs. They were all a product of my bricks.
Mhm.
And so Garnet allowed me to realize that my physical reality was in my control. I created it, but that also meant that I could uncreate it
Mhm.
if I had the courage to do so.
Mhm. And Garnet, well, how were you able to help Olivia start to break through these? Because I mean, obviously, it's an atypical, coachee relationship when the coachee becomes the mentor, and it's wider than what you're focused on. How are some of the ways you helped her identify and overcome some of these bricks?
Well, I wish I could say I was a learned scholar and had read thousands and thousands of books, but it's not true. I think that um, I'm a natural listener, and so I could actually had a bit of intuition about what might be going on based on her circumstances, and I would ask good questions and then be prepared to discuss them from the perspectives that I had in life. I mean, I've read a lot of different things, so it just made it. And Olivia was always open, and she didn't just shut down as soon as we started talking about something. So I think it was a natural, very natural conversation.
Mhm.
It's not something that happens every time that you run into someone, but it just seemed to work here.
And then talk to me about the power of intentionality, because that word is thrown around a lot these days. You know, we've gotten like authenticity, intentionality, all of these things, and sometimes they become, you know, buzzwords. But talk to me a little bit about the power of intentionality and how important that is.
I'm a really big fan of intentionality, and so I set really clear goals, and I do it all the time. So even though I'm of significant vintage, I still have a lot of goals in our life, and I can articulate them in a very specific way, so you would have no misunderstanding of what I was attempting to do. And then I work backwards from there as to the steps and the changes I have to make in my life to be able to accomplish those goals. And I think it really is just that simple, and we make it way too complex. And like you said, intentionality is going to be a bit of an industry, but I don't think it really has to be.
No, no, not at all. And how was intentionality? How did that help you, Olivia, as you started to like focus on the intentionality part?
Well, I think I just want to reflect back on something Garnet said actually about how simple it is. And I just want to give people like an image of how simple that idea is. Because we talk about this in the first chapter of the book, and it's pretty profound in my mind because I still remember it so vividly. All I knew about Garnet before we met was that he was a very successful businessman. And then I remember on the first meetings that I would show up and it was 5 o'clock in the morning, it could be -30 outside. It's definitely dark in this the area of Canada where we trained. And there he would be, always on time, freshly clean shaven head. If you can't see Garnet right now, he is bald, always clean shaven, no stubble ever on his face. His clothes would be freshly pressed, and he would always smell freshly washed or like cologne because he just appeared like he had taken care of his presentation for a workout. I
Hmm.
think most people who wouldn't even get out of bed at that time, especially not in the dark at -50, but to respect themselves, respect the person that they're showing up for enough. The power of intentionality just on your presentation at that time in the morning is I've never again experienced it with another client. And it was very impactful.
Yeah. So Garnet, just talk to me a little bit about that concept of respect for yourself, respect for other people, choosing how you. I talk a lot about choosing how you show up, right? So I mean, part of that is choosing how you show up, right?
Yeah, I think if you start off every conversation and everybody you meet about what is in this meeting for them, that in and of itself really helps build your own self-respect. So it's not self-respect saying, oh, look at me, I'm this
Hmm.
wonderful person. It's saying, look, I have a tremendous amount of respect for everyone I meet. I believe that everyone I meet is a teacher, and I will trust you, and you have to earn your way out of my trust, not earn your way in. And I think if you have that approach in life, you'll naturally have a reasonable level of self-respect, and knowing that none of us are perfect, so we all make mistakes. I was explaining yesterday that I'm probably like I should be the vice president of mistakes because I make so many, but I try to overcome them. So
Yeah, well, I think we could probably all compete for that title, hopefully. um, and tell me also this idea of generosity as a success multiplier. Olivia, do you want to sort of explain what the concept of that is?
I mean, it is really Garnet's concept, so he would be the best explainer. However, I will tell you what it's like to be the person learning from Garnet
Mhm.
about it. You know, there's so many things actually. I think that my favorite way that Garnet is generous is that he can see a version of you that is greater than the current version of you that you are not yet able to hold in your mind for yourself or even believe for yourself. So when you show up with problems or concerns or uh, frustrations in a day, Garnet will approach it from let's not focus on any of those things. Let's focus on the things that you bring to the table that are really fantastic, and let's move in the direction of those things.
Mm.
It's a positive perspective, but it also allows you to not perseverate on all of the shortcomings that are causing those mistakes that we've already talked about, but for you to direct your energy into, yes, the solutions, but also into believing in yourself more. He holds self-belief for you until you can attempt to hold it for yourself. That generosity for me has been, it's been so informing, not just of the power of generosity, but of realizing that I can do that for other people. And when I started to do that, even in my role as a coach, I realized that it was the most important thing that I do for people as a coach is believe for them in their ability until they can believe for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a powerful concept, Garnet and Olivia. That idea of believing for other people when they don't believe, they don't believe for themselves, or they can't see it. And because we live in a very self-consumed world today, where there's not a lot of people who are looking out for other people, right? Because so many people have gotten so self-consumed, and the pervasive culture is all about, like, self, self, self. So, how Garnet, what is that like, though, when you focus outwards like that, when you focus on generosity towards others? What does that do to yourself?
I don't think about it at all. I think it's become my nature,
Mhm.
and I think you get disappointed the odd time, and you have to live with that. That goes with it.
Mhm.
But it's exactly as you just stated. I think we have an obligation to look for the best in other people. One of the biggest and best books I ever read was by Thich Nhat Hanh, called Teachings on Love. And in his book, he says, we're all perfect the way we are, but there's room for improvement. And so I have that kind of general view of life. And so you always look for the gold nuggets in a person. And just it just becomes a natural thing. So it's like I just don't. It's not even part of my consciousness really anymore.
Right, right. So also, Garnet, what is this concept of of your chosen family? Because I think that's a fascinating idea.
I mean, the idea of having families been around forever.
Mhm.
You are a function of those you associate with, but my wife and I decided that we would expand our family, and when we said expand our family, I mean we expanded it in financial terms, not just in theory. So the people we brought into our family have a status like our natural children. And so the view is that we did that because we felt these people like Olivia, Keenan, Lisa would actually take a bullet for us metaphorically, and therefore we need to stand in for them. And it's a beautiful feeling, but it's got its moments where everybody has to kind of mold into the same belief system and all of the things that are important to have a strong family. So it became, once started thinking about it, it became kind of a natural thing to look and say, there's people out there that, that really feel like they belong with us. And, if they feel that way too, then we ought to do something about it rather than just think about it. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. And from your point of view, Olivia, what was that like to be kind of brought into a new family, if you like?
Um, I've had friends, read the book, and there's a common theme that happens is in that people who come from difficult backgrounds with their family, dysfunctional families, let's call that, really resonate with that chapter on chosen family. That idea that, yes, you have your biological family, but
Mhm.
you have an opportunity at any point in your life to decide what your family gets to be, like who gets to be in your circle of trust, in your circle of influence, and who do you also want to expend your energy in nourishing the relationships and encouraging other people. Um, it seems like such an obvious idea, and yet it's
Mhm.
so foreign. There's so many difficulties related around how families operate with one another. But for me, being able to step into this concept of chosen family has honestly changed how my current family, like, my husband who I married and how I'm raising my children. It makes me realize the responsibility that I have to create a family. I know I should have known that already, but once you change the concept, it was less
Mhm.
like that we just fell into family with one another. It was more that I'm choosing to create this family, and how am I choosing to create it? And as I'm stepping into Garnet in that family, my responsibility to show up in that family member, because we're choosing to be a family, changes. Again, we can go back to intentionality. Like, why am I there? What purpose am I serving if I'm choosing to be there?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fascinating concept, and I think it's a very important one, especially for people who maybe, as you said, maybe they have struggles with their family, or maybe they just have the wrong universe of people around them, and they need to, they need to be intentional about that, because I think sometimes people aren't intentional about the relationships they have. So in the last couple of moments, like, so the idea of the book, how did that come about?
So I think that I wanted to write a book, and I asked Olivia if she would want to write the book with me, because a lot of the constructs in the book were things we discussed in all our runs. And so we started down the road, and it took a long time, because we probably spent a quarter of each session what we worked on the book crying, because it's sad in a way, the things that we all endure in life. And so at the end of the day, I think finishing the book was a bit of a triumph of over adversity in a way, because we kind of laid our souls bare a bit. And I think that it's almost like just makes us stronger. And it was a wonderful experience. It's all I can say. So.
And Olivia, what do you hope? You talk to people just a little bit about the book and what you think the book can do for them.
The book is really to help encourage people to realize that if they utilize the tools and the lessons that we share in the book, that they have the opportunity to change their lives, to transform their lives, that we have the power within us. Garnet shares the wisdom of the tools that have changed his life. Many of the tools are also through the perspective of my lens. Of course, I come from a different background and am looking to do different things in the world than Garnet is. We all need encouraging all the time, every day. And if this book helps to inspire people that they can take a step forward towards their own transformation, that is our goal.
Yeah, and the book is 17 Runs, The Unbeatable Path to Unlock Life's True Potential. And just before we go, please do remind people what you both do, Olivia.
I'm a speaker, coach, and I have a podcast like yourself, John.
Yeah. And Garnet?
I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I've made my whole fortune in doing sales. So I've been, I guess, a professional salesperson for all but 4 years of my life, and so I've learned a lot along the way and met a lot of interesting people.
Fantastic. Well,
and
anyway,
I get a cold sweat doing podcasts, just so we're clear on that part.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's don't worry about it. It's just a casual conversation among friends who've never met before. That's all it is. And all of Garnet's and Olivia's information will be below this video, including links to the book 17 Runs. So thank you again for sharing this. It's a fascinating story and a fascinating dynamic, and great work that you're doing. Anytime you can help people like remove limiting beliefs and discover the world that they should be living in, that's a good day. So thank you again. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.